Okay, I waited pretty long to actually get these predictions out because I don't know, I've been busy all day. But I considered not even doing them, but I figured I might as well just to chronicle my own thoughts. Obviously this clearly isn't scripted or edited. I just threw a bunch of things that I think we could see and wanted to talk about them very briefly. Would like to keep this to a relatively short amount of time. Like if this is over 15 minutes long, then I fucked up somehow. But I guess going around what we have, I guess some of the things what I care less about. Surely something's going on with the Elden Ring Switch port. I believe it was supposed to come out last year. It was announced in the initial presentation for the Switch 2, and then we saw that it didn't run well at some con. I think it was Comic Con or some Games Fest, something like that. Gamescom, I don't know. But it wasn't running very well though. But with time, it's probably okay. At least enough to hear something about it. And the Elden Ring guy also represents Dusk Bloods, because surely we'll hear something about Dusk Bloods soon as well. Um, we have one of the characters from the Trails games. I have actually not played any of them, but they've been getting a shit ton of hype recently. We just had one come out, and another was announced recently, so I wouldn't be shocked if we see that. I also just think in general that this director rely pretty heavily on stuff that's been announced previously as like the big focuses at least. Like if you don't think we're getting like a 5 minute segment on Adventures of Elliot, I would expect one. Maybe not 5 minutes, but stuff we know about we'll probably get a pretty big showing. But yeah, Trailers is one of those. Maybe not a huge showing. I guess I kind of just went off on another tangent with that. But I really want to play the Trailers games. I've been recommended them for quite a while. Uh, then we have this is kind of like with the Oreo presentations in the Switch 2 lifespan. I predicted like whatever was like the game of the year darling at the time. So previously it had been Baldur's Gate 3 and now it's Expedition 33. I feel like both make sense to come to the system. If I had to say one was more likely, probably E33, but both will happen eventually, I think. And but I mean, either way, if I was to play either of them, I would play them on a different console, most likely. In regards to Nia from Xenoblade 2, who I have in the bottom corner, I feel like there's been a lot of rumors about uh something Xenoblade being announced soon because of like voice actor stuff, and a lot of people default to either a Xenoblade 4, which I don't think it's time yet, though I wouldn't be shocked if it was announced in like maybe September or so, but a lot of other people think Xenoblade Warriors, which I would love to see, but I also don't think it's time because we just got Age of Imprisonment and that game has not yet gotten its DLC cycle. So if there is something Xenoblade, I feel like it just makes sense to have Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition with all of the Torna, the Golden Country, and other DLC stuff on the cartridge, up-res resolution. I guess those are synonyms. Uh, just higher frame rate, all the stuff you'd expect. Similar to the treatment Xenoblade 1 got, but with a bit less work going into it, because you don't really need to put as much into it. Um, there's a bunch of Microsoft stuff in the corner, because I feel like eventually Microsoft is going to have a big blowout with Switch games, but until then, we've gotten very little. Um, I feel like it just makes a ton of sense for them to do a Switch 2 edition of Minecraft eventually. I'm surprised we haven't had that. Um, then I had previously predicted for the last one, uh, there were some contract signs that ensured that future COD games would have to come to Nintendo platforms, and that hasn't happened yet. So surely, sooner rather than later, there will be a COD game on Switch. Banjo-Kazooie, that's kind of, it's not likely, but I would love to see a Banjo remake for current gen, and then I think Master Chief Collection could get a port. I don't think that's too off the table. Uh, Going around a bit, I've we'll probably see a release date for Danganronpa 2x2, or at least some sort of trailer for it. Um, I'm quite excited for 2x2. Um, I'm famously very mixed on Danganronpa. Like, I cannot talk about the games without having a bunch of criticism, and I think all that criticism is dissolved. But regardless, I'm just excited for, like, um, sorry. I'm just excited for, like, being able to, like, do the predictions before the game comes out, which has been a ton of fun to follow along with. I might do, like, an actual predictions thing eventually. My mind keeps changing on what I think will happen. I've had points where I'm like, alright, Hajime is gonna die first, and the pro tag is gonna be Mahiru or Nagito. Uh, Now I'm kind of more in the it's just gonna be Hajime camp, which would be lame as hell. Um, Best case scenario to me is I would like Mahiru as the protagonist, with like I don't know, maybe I think Fuyuhiko could be a good antagonist. Like he maintains the role he had throughout the first two cases of the original, but I also find it hard to believe that Fuyuhiko will make it too far. So regardless, this is a thing for another day. I have Kalamo from Age of Imprisonment because, as I mentioned earlier, uh, Age of Imprisonment came out recently, and we have not yet gotten a DLC cycle for the game. And with there's a lot of content that just seems like glaring omissions from the game. Like the fact that Sonya and Ganondorf aren't playable just seems weird. So I do think we're gonna get them, as well as I forget their names, but the Gerudo twins that Ganondorf had in his army. Um, I'm a lot lower on Age of Imprisonment than I was on Age of Calamity, and it's kind of funny because my issues with Age of Imprisonment are like the opposite of my issues with Calamity. Like for Calamity, I thought the story was kind of stupid because they made it non-canon and added like time travel stuff. But the one positive with that was that it led to a bunch of like super interesting characters for the roster. But then the issue with this game is that the roster is so uninteresting. They just made up a bunch of like generic Rito, Gerudo, Zoras, and Gorons that have basically no plot relevance whatsoever. So I would love to see the roster get like just made better, but surely that'll happen eventually. Uh, Obligatory Atlas predictions. I did consider putting Raito up there because I do think remaster of Raito 2 eventually is very possible. I think with Persona 30th anniversary stuff, we could also see um, P4 2020 Steam remaster type thing with P1 and P2. I feel like that makes sense to do, and then as like an anniversary thing, and then a couple years later have actual remakes or at least like proper remasters that actually add stuff. Um, then what I'm more confident in saying, but for Atlas stuff, is that I do think Metaphor just makes a lot of sense. I feel like Metaphor is a great chance of showing up. Besides that, there was at least a chance that P4 Revival shows up, which I just recently played Golden for the first time this year, and I have a lot of issues with it. I think the writing for the game just isn't as good as the other games, which is a shame because everyone hyped it up a ton. It's still a phenomenal game. Like this is a 9 out of 10, but it doesn't stack up to like the other mainline Persona games I've played. Like for example, P5 is my favorite game of all time and P3 is my 8th. P4 is probably like around the 30th spot or something like that. But I don't know, we'll see how Revival does. I don't feel like it will really change my opinion too much on the game. Uh, Beyond that, we have Square Enix is going to show up. I cannot say with confidence what they'll have besides Adventures of Elliot in Philadelphia or whatever that continent is called. Game looks good. The HD 2D games are just very good. So excited for another one, though I missed the last few, so I probably won't get to it for a while. Sonic Frontiers 2, I think it's about time. A new Sonic release just makes sense. Frontiers 2 has been rumored for a while. I believe Nate the Hate is teasing it. So I would expect a sequel to Frontiers around this point. We also there's probably gonna be like Crosswords DLC shown off. I think that makes sense. Uh Don't know who it would be. It's kind of hard to keep track of who's in the game already. I think the most recent characters announced were the Mega Man ones. I don't know if we've got the Teenage Mutant characters yet or the Avatar, so those will come eventually, I'm sure. Uh, Capcom's probably gonna devote a ton of time, and by a ton of time I mean like 3 minutes, to Monster Hunter Stories 3. Maybe what's it called? Wilds could get a port, though I can't imagine that doing too well considering the game is underperformed in many ways. Uh, the Resident Evil games coming out soon will probably get a good shout. And then for, I guess, on the Capcom train, every single direct out of desperation, I put Athena Sykes on there for Ace Attorney 7, and it hasn't happened yet. So, to mix it up, I threw Phoenix on there. If it works when Phoenix is there, then I guess Athena was the problem. I would prefer a game with Athena as the protag, but I don't know how likely that actually is. I've got Okabe next to him because we still need to know when Steins Gate Reboot is coming out. Probably that the game got delayed. I have no idea when it's going to, so I'm a bit worried about that. But it'll be coming eventually. I feel like this makes sense as a time to show it. And then finally, we'll have some sort of level 5 uh, appearance here, whether it be just like a release date for Layton, which by the way, I've never played a Layton game, though I do intend to play uh, Layton vs Phoenix Wright soon. I know that doesn't fully count, but whatever. But I'm quite disappointed in the level 5 staff for using just so much AI stuff with the new Layton game. Deca Police, we don't know what the hell is going on with that game. We haven't seen it in forever. So maybe it'll finally show up again. And then something I thought of that I haven't seen anyone talk about is I could see them do a big update for Fantasy Life 2 or Fantasy Life I. That game has gotten it's sold really well. And I feel like that's the kind of game that just makes sense to get a big refresher update for. But I guess beyond that, I kind of went through everything. I talked quite fast, which cool, I guess. But they're just, I don't know. I think we we very much so have a lot of first party games coming up. No real big system sellers, but there is one once a month for a while. So we're not starved for games right now at all. But just to fill it out a bit more with third parties would be fun. Uh, I do honestly, like, we don't need more games at this point. There's like 4 big like physical releases coming out for Switch 2 and Switch 1 every month that like I'm interested in. So we don't need more. But it is always excited. Yes, I would have preferred a general direct, but makes sense that there isn't one here, and I'm not upset over it. It is what it is. The only game I wish that I would have like been excited to see if we had a normal direct was a Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, but I guess there is a slight chance that could show up here, given that uh intelligent systems, I guess you could call them a partner, though I am a bit less confident in that. I feel like that's something you save for its own show or like a bigger spot, and I don't think that game's gonna come out in the first half of the year. You could also say Monolithosoft doesn't make sense as a partner, but I feel like Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition is a small enough release that you could announce it here and not have to give it its own spot. But yeah, I think for real this time that about wraps it up. So tomorrow I will be back to talk about what was announced, see if I was right about much of this, which I doubt is the case. But yeah,